pronouns and how to address are important, and they're identical. And I don't see
Even in this bout of recovery, get to real stories, real stories, real recovery. I am Kat, and I'm on the road of recovery.
My name is Bill. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, and I'm a person in recovery from cocaine addiction and all other mood-altering substances. Today, I'm a retiree. I'm a pastor of a church. I'm a grandfather. I'm a father. And I am a sponsor and someone who cares about desperate, dying addicts.
So, Bill, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood and youth?
I had a good childhood. I grew up in a two-parent household, lots of support. They worked hard and was committed. I had two older brothers and a younger sister, and everything went wonderful until my parents got divorced when I was about 13 years old. At the time, I didn't think it affected me, but it affected me greatly. Looking back through step work, I found out it was that time when I went from a structured environment to kind of a loose environment. And I lived with my mother, and that's when I began to find out a peer group that I could run with. And all of a sudden, I found myself running with a group of guys, and we experimented with drugs and alcohol, and we had a little gang, and it just brought on an entirely different lifestyle for me.
Can you describe that first use?
My first use was actually, I was real young. My grandmother actually used to let us have little parties and drink and stuff, but my first real use was with my older brother, and he gave me some marijuana, and I remember swearing I'd never do it again. Of course, I became a liar. And I continued, but I had no issues until I was, actually was 24 years old before I decided I wanted to move into the world of cocaine. I wanted to make money, and I started selling it. I didn't understand what I was doing, and I began to experiment with using it. And in the next year or so, it just became my God. It became my entire life. I began to get introduced to jails and institutions. I went from a nice career. I was on a great career path, and all of a sudden I lost everything and became homeless.
Let's talk a little bit about how your use affected your relationships.
Everybody who loved me eventually had to let me go. I got really bad. I would get paranoid. I'd run around butt naked with shotguns, looking for invisible people. My father had to evict me. He used to tell people I'm the first tenant he ever evicted, and he had to put me out of his house. I became homeless. I started living with different women and just looking for anybody who would take me in, and of course I would chase them away. And it just got so bad that nobody could really deal with me. Started going in and out of Montgomery County Jail. And during that period, I did seek a couple of treatments before I lost some jobs, but it was a spiral towards the bottom. And on March, probably the end of February in 1990, I was out one night, and I just said, tonight I'm going to die or I'm going to get high. And I was willing to do whatever. And if I died, that would have been cool too. And I had been trying to get in treatment, but back in the 90s, treatment was a luxury. Once you lost insurance, which I had did, you had to be on waiting lists. And I was on a waiting list for a treatment center. And as I was waiting, this night I was in a set of projects here in Dayton. And I was attempting to sell plastic, portraying it as cocaine. And it just happened to be the task force. And when they put the handcuffs on me that night, I actually thanked God. I said, I'm going to the penitentiary, but at least I'll be alive. And what had happened was they took me to the county jail. I couldn't call anyone else because I had burned all my bridges. And as I was laying there that year, they said, we're going to let people out who are nonviolent felons. And they let me out. And I went to my mother's house, and she let me stay with her. And I called that treatment center, and they said, you can come in on Monday. And used a couple more times that weekend, and my mother let me go in her bedroom, and March 3rd, 1990 was the last day that I used a drug or an alcohol.
Wow.
I entered the Salvation Army's treatment center.
Mm-hmm.
I look back, I look at it as God at work. It was a spiritual, Christian-based treatment center. I actually did my first sermon there, not realizing that one day I would become a pastor.
Right.
And I stayed extra time in treatment. It was a 90-day program. I stayed there for 7 months because I was beaten. I was not rushing. And one of the counselors there took an interest in me. He said, since you're staying extra, I'm going to show you how to do groups. And I began to do groups for them. They began to let me use their vehicles to take other clients to meetings, because once I got in, I was in. I already knew what to do because I had been to treatment several times before. So I had a sponsor. I knew I needed to go to 12-step support groups. And so I kind of caught that bug, and I was just engaged. And I ended up at 7 months moving to another place for homeless people for 5 more months. And when I got there, a gentleman asked me to go to a place called Nova House and ask him about employment. And they hired me as a drug counselor 7 months sober. And I've been in the field ever since. So for, what was that, almost 33, 34 more years, I've been in the field, and I went everywhere from counselor to program director. I recently retired as a program director in February of this year. And so now I just pastor full time and enjoy the life of recovery. I now do spiritual 12 steps as well as community 12-step programs. And my life now is committed to helping anyone find a way out from recovery. It's really, or from addiction. It's really been neat on one hand, and I just need to share this, and I struggle on another hand to see all the changes that have come along with recovery now and addiction. The things that I was arrested for, they wouldn't give it a second thought today. And so being an African American in recovery, we saw the difference and how the law was administered earlier, but it should change the way that it's changed. And so I'm happy that we're moving to make recovery a priority for people who are suffering from this devastating disease. Today, I've raised my daughter. I got custody of my daughter when she was 7 or 8 years old, and raised her. I have a relationship with my son. My mother is pleased with the life that I'm living now. And it's all because of recovery and the fact that some people decided we can beat this thing together, that we could never do it alone. So anytime someone asks me to speak about recovery, I'm there because I owe a debt I could never repay. I've had a chance to live 2 lives in one lifetime. It's the best I've ever had it. One of the things I'm proud about, I started the 12-step group with my church. And it was funny because when I started it, they were like, well, we're not on drugs or anything. Why would we come to that? And so some of them came. It's been powerful to see people 60, 70, 80 years old just getting free from some issues they had that they didn't even know was driving them. Because we all suffer from disease on the inside of us. And through our wonderful knowledge and insight, we can get some relief if we're willing.
I want to talk, spiritual programs, especially in the 12-step program, sometimes can be a little tough to manage for those who are coming in very harmed or hurt, traumatized by the church and stuff. How has the knowledge of that affected the way that you help to support people today?
Excellent question. I came back and I was never going back to church myself. But through getting a relationship with a higher power, there came a point in the 12-step program that God put a calling on my life. And when I accepted my calling to the ministry, in my denomination, you have to go to seminary. And so as I started doing that, I couldn't attend as many meetings as I used to. And some people actually took my membership from the 12-step program, told me I didn't come to enough meetings, I was no longer an addict. But I had to follow what God had put on my heart. But because I came the path of the 12-step fellowship, I have the ability to allow other people to choose whatever they choose to be their higher power and be patient and compassionate with them. I never back off of what I believe, but I don't force it on anyone. And so I've got friends who are atheists. As a matter of fact, I got a business partner who is agnostic, and but he has a spiritual walk, and you can do that. You can coexist. So my belief is I believe in Jesus Christ as my higher power, but you have the luxury of choosing whoever you want, because I care more about your life than what you believe. And I've also seen people who never believed are now deacons in churches or in different fellowships. So I think it's a process, and as you come through this process, there's an awakening that happens in your spirit, and you begin to seek your truths. And whatever you find for your truth is what you need. I just believe in loving people and treating people the way you want to be treated.
So I want to go back. We're going to go back a little bit. I want to talk about like the lowest point of your addiction. So like, what maybe a story? I mean, you kind of shared a little bit, but like maybe a story of that like lowest part.
One of the lowest points of my addiction was being kicked out of a young lady's house who I cared about, but my addiction made me unbearable, and going to jail by the same policeman 2 Thursday nights in a row for coming to get me. And she said, get out, and I had to go. It was at that point I promised myself, if you ever get yourself together, you'll never be in a position where a lady can tell you to leave their house and you have to get out. And I went all the way down to being homeless. I told you about the story with the police. But when I got in recovery, my father owned properties. I begged him. My father allowed me to move back in one more time. And I never regretted that. I went from being homeless to a homeowner to a landlord. And my father, his famous line to me was, Bill, everybody's on your team but you. Whenever you show up, we can help you. From the time I showed back up in 1990, my father helped me acquire every property that I have. I own maybe 15 properties right now. And it all started with recovery, but that story always reminded me I'd never be in a position where someone else could tell me to get out. And he delivered it. That was probably my lowest point. Well, no, I have one more. I'll just share this real quick. Okay. When I was going in and out, my older brother was my hero. My older brother, very responsible, didn't use, didn't do anything. He used to chase me and say, you know, there's a good man still in there. You need to get it together. And one night I was at a hotel getting high. The girls had ran off with all my money and all the drugs. And I'm in this hotel room calling my brother. I'm saying, where is he at? He was Mr. Dependable. I could depend on him. He didn't answer the phone. And I called my father. And my father said, you're out there acting a fool. Your brother's dead. And my oldest brother had got killed on a motorcycle. That devastated me. I was mad. I was angry with God. I was angry with everyone because he was the good brother. And I always ask God, why you didn't take me? I was out here messing up. You took the one who was good, raising his family, and that was probably my lowest point when I lost him. And I've always tried to live a life to be pleasing as he looks down, that he can say, I'm proud of my younger brother.
I think he can. Absolutely.
All right.
Ooh, no. It's a joyous day. It's been a joyous day.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
so grateful. What stigmas have you experienced in this field, in your life, in recovery?
There is still big stigma. It has decreased greatly. I carry the stigma of telling people I've been a convicted felon. I've watched people. I've on this journey. I remember going for a job. This big corporation came into Dayton. They found out about me. They asked me to apply. I applied. They gave me their test. I maxed their test out. They were in the midst of making the offer, and they found out I was a felon. And you'd have thought I said I have AIDS and it's spreading because they pulled it back. The Army wouldn't take me when I had a misdemeanor, and they chased me my whole life. I passed all their tests. They wouldn't take me. And so those things, I look back, they hurt my self-esteem. But through the process, I found out God didn't want me in any of those positions anyway. And so my life unfolded wonderfully, but battling the stigma is still a big challenge we have, and especially for those who not only have substance use, but are dealing with substance abuse and mental health issues. Big stigma in housing, big stigma in the community, and then the double stigma of being a minority a lot of times, especially I'm a larger black male. Sometimes that carries connotations that people have fears of you who don't even know you. But thank God I've met people who have, he's always sent people who've made a way from all races and all walks of life. And I just thank God that there's good people in the world, period. And I just believe in going a little deeper than any skin color or anything. Who are you in your heart? Who are you genuinely? And if you got a good heart, we can work. And that's been my experience.
So I know you just retired. What hopes do you have for your future?
Oh, well, I kind of own a group home. We're trying to grow that. One of my friends, we're starting a training business together, so we go around and do trainings for people. And I just want to enjoy life one day at a time.
I want you to share a message of hope for somebody who's still struggling.
If you're struggling, I need you to know that you can recover. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't listen to your mind. Seek help and follow through. They say 90 meetings in 90 days. Well, I want you to know you too can do it. If I made it, anybody can. Good luck. Inspiring hope, one story at a time.
When I don't see
Living in this side of recovery, get to real stories, real recovery. I am Kat, and I'm on the road of recovery.